Hello, Dr. Taylor here. Welcome to Dr. Taylor's Pedagogical Notes. And what I'd like to do is mixed number multiplied by a fraction. Okay? So we're going to look at this and concrete through abstract, etc. And let's get started. So concrete. I'm going to use the geoboard again. Geoboard's easy for fractions, that's why I pick it. All right? So clearly we could use the construction paper, scissors, etc., etc. It goes through all the descriptions of why we're using the geoboard, which we've done in a lot of them now, so you can read through those yourself without me belaboring, reading you the slides. That's the worst kind of presenter ever. So I'm going to go ahead and try to figure out what to do with this. So we can't arbitrarily cut things up in any old way. We need to make our rectangles dimensions of the denominator of our fractions. So the denominator we have is a 4 and a 2, right? No, we will ignore the whole number part for now, okay? Will we ignore it forever? No. But let me tell you how I read this number. How do you read that number? What is it? 2 what? 2 and 1/4, right? So I'm going to decompose it to the 2 and the 1/4 apart, and I'm going to do 1/4 times a half, or what's half of a fourth, and 2 times a half, or what's half of a 2. Those two things separately decomposed will be much easier for me to get my head around. So let's do that together. All right, so we're going to first look at the denominator of 4 and 2. So it's going to be 4 wide and 2 high, okay? So now I'm going to cut those things up, right? That's what I'm going to do. No, we'll ignore the whole number part for now again. All right, I'm going to cut it up. 1, 2, 3. So that's the fourths part, right? The first is what we have been doing all along. All right? And remember, multiplication of fractions, I work on the one area model. So after I cut the fourths up vertically, how am I going to cut up the halves? You got it, horizontally. All right? And cut the halves up, and there's 2 halves. Boom. Now I've got a 4 by 2 cut up based upon those denominators, which gives me a common shape of the fraction. And now I'm going to look at the numerators and see where they overlap. Okay? So first of all, how many fourths did I have? One of them, right? And so any one of those partitions is 1/4. I'm going to just put some beads or nickels or whatever into it. Okay? So that's 1/4. Okay? Now the next one is times 1/2. Well, any one of these two horizontals would be half, so I'm going to put my pennies on one of those things. And that's 1/2. Now, really, my penny should have went all the way across, right? That's really what 1/2 is, all the way across there. So there's a little error in my slideshow, which I'll present. But if that were true, the only place that those would both be at, there'd be only pennies over here, only nickels over here, but there is a penny and a nickel. That means in one of those places, multiplying is happening. So that's going to be 1 out of how many squares is that altogether? Well, it's 2 by 2 by 4. It's 2 by 4, right? So if I think biologically, again, bunnies, right? Takes 2 of them, so that's the only place 2 exists. So that's one place, that's my numerator, out of 2 by 4, which is my denominator, 1/8. So that's half of a fourth. Half of a fourth is an eighth. All right? If you think about it, it makes sense. 1/8 and 1/8 is 2/8, but that would reduce, wouldn't it? Okay? So I've got the half of the fractional part. Now I need to find half of the whole part. So let's go ahead and do that. But I have 2 whole parts and 1/4 fractional part. I'm breaking my whole parts. I'm looking at 2. There's a 1, 2. I'm going to write it as 4/4. So 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4. 1 by 4. 4/4. That will make it easy to look at. I could have done it almost any way, but since this was in fourths, I'm going to put this in fourths as well. If I cut it in half, I could just draw a line right through it, right? All right. So this is the 1/2, and I've chopped it in half. And look at those 2 pieces. Each one of these represents a whole unit, right? So when I put in my stuff that fills them all up, right? That's a whole 4/4 and a whole 4/4, because that's what 2 is, 2 whole pieces. Then I want to look at half of each piece, right? I'm going to put in my pennies. Half and half, doesn't matter if I put them all on top or bottom. Here's 1/2 and another half. That's what I have, right? That's the place where multiplication is happening. So what's 2/4 and 2/4, right, is 4/4, right? That's what I'm saying, 1/2 and 1/2. Can you see that? So 2/4 and 2/4 is 4/4. All right. I think that's what we're saying there. So that's, there you go, see it? And 4/4 is, of course, 1. Very good. Right. So therefore, we have a simplified version, which is 1/2 and 1/2, or 4/4, doesn't matter, is a 1. And you could have easily just said, what's half of 2, right? I could have just said, take that one away, and that wasn't what I wanted. I could have said, take that one away, and I'd have had 1 and an eighth, right? So I could have chopped it this way and just pulled it aside. There's a lot of ways you can do it, whatever way makes most sense to you. Graphical, very similar. I'm just going to draw pictures. There's something cut into fourths, right? That makes up a whole. Cut it in half. I have 2 parts which make up a whole. Represents the number 4. So I'm going to hatch. So there's 1. That's 1/4, right? See it? Okay. So when I look at this, I see now we have only one piece. That's a half that's shaded. Only one, well, there's the overlap. Only one piece that overlaps right there. So that's a 1/4 and a half. And there's my overlap of 1 out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So again, multiplying the same way we did when we looked at multiplying rational numbers or multiplying fractions slide. And then half of 2, of course, is 1. Right, there's a whole piece and that's a whole piece. I could just slide one off and that's cut in half, right? But I'll do it the pedagogy of 2 halves, right? Make a whole. And so I have 1 and 1/8. Okay? In abstract, I'm thinking about it. What's half of 2? 1. What's half of a 4th? An 1/8. 1 and an 1/8. It gets to that part where you can think about it, right? And just get your head around it. And boom, there you are. So the strategies built up to where this kind of thing hopefully is a little easier for you now, and if not, you play with it again. Watch it again, do what you got to do. All right. And that's it for a mixed number times a fraction. Thank you very much.